Hello guys and welcome back. Let's talk about other things we can do with the class. The one thing you do realize that it's not that clean to work with yet. Let's say we have things like weight equals to 0 to start with. Maybe a sound this animal make equals to nothing for now. So a lot of things we can add, right? Then when you are creating a cat, then you have to do all those setups. So age equals to maybe 4 years old for the cat, and then weight equals to, I don't know, 14, and then sound equals to male, right? So you can see now it takes a whole lot of length just to create a cat, right? Because of those things. Now it will be more convenient if we can set it up when we were doing it in the first line here. Okay, and we actually can. This animal does feels like a function, isn't it? You can see the signature and then the argument list. So you can actually define a function inside of the class called the constructor to allow you to pass in argument to initialize the member variables here. That function is a special function. It looks like this: define underscore init underscore, and then parentheses. And then again, like other functions, it takes self as the first one, and then you can pass in things like name, age, weight, and then sound, and then column. Alright, now here you can assign those arguments to your member variables. So self.name will be equals to name, and then self.age will be equals to age, whoops, and self.weight will be equals to weight, and then self.sound equals to sound. Okay, so now by calling this function, we could set those guys up in one line, right? And this function is actually this function you're calling if you have one. So now we can say animal, and then we can start to use to pass in arguments. And this first one, again, is going to be the default one, so the cat will go there. So you don't have to worry about the first one. You start with the second one. So name equals to kitty, right? And then the age equals to 4 years old. Maybe weight is, I don't know, 16. And then sound can be male, right? So now we created a cat with one line, and those arguments will pass in and define it over here, right? The function has to be named this way, and it has the underscores. I think that's some traditional habit that people have to avoid name clashing, right? This will guarantee that this function is going to be unique and not clashing with any other member functions you could create. So you could create a function called initialize yourself. It's not going to be the same as this one. Okay, that's the purpose of having the underscores. It's easier to find also. Okay, although looks a bit ugly in my opinion. Anyway, so now what we can do is we can try to change the print a little bit. So we can say, instead of just making noise, we can be more specific now. So %s one more time, and this time we can, oops, one more parenthesis, one more, and then self.sound. Okay. Now one thing that I feel like is a little ugly about this language is that you have to do self to access member variables. But maybe that's just me, because I have been using other languages like C++, C#, kind of like C style languages. This is actually very different. Okay, the concepts are similar, but the details are actually very different compared to the other languages. Anyway, now if we do this, you can see the kitty says male, right? That's actually, let's actually make it a little bit more fancier. Says, cool, right? So now we can create a cat in one line, and we can create a dog like this, and we can say the dog was maybe called what do you call dog? Maybe Walker, and then Oh, I'm using 4 for that. That's kind of like wrong actually. Those are actually numbers, so we don't have to have quotation marks. So 6 years old, 27, and then wolf. Okay, now we can say dog dot make noise, and you can see kitty says male and worker says wolf. So that's gonna be a much cleaner way to create a class. Okay, so one very important concept about any programming language is that this init function, or in general constructors, is probably going to be one of the most important functions you have to create for a class, because it is the entrance of this thing when you create it. So here a lot of things has to be done to guarantee the function will always be, the class created will always make sense. Now this may not be that hard to do something wrong. I mean, they're just a bunch of numbers and names, but consider this. If you're creating a class called date, you want to represent all the possible date, then it's going to be really hard to make it correct, like class date, right? Because dates are really unique. You cannot just say year equals 0 and then months equals to 1 and then day equals to, maybe I'll start with 0. Then you just create a initialize, like a rookie you will do like year, months, and then day. Then this becomes dangerous. People would create like, let me finish it, self.year equals year, and then self.months equals to months, and then self.day equals to day, right? So this all seems innocent enough, right? It's technically syntax-wise all correct, right? You can run it. Oh, actually there's something wrong. Invalid syntax here. Oh, that's define. All right, so this is all syntaxically correct, but it's functionally problematic. What if people create a year that does not exist, right? Year -1, months 31, and day maybe 100. It's totally invalid. And this initialize is going to be the first place you're going to check those values and see if they are correct. So a lot of code has to be done to check if argument is correct or makes sense in this case. And a lot of codes, like a whole lot of codes, has to be done before you even do this. So it's really difficult, and that's why this function here is important, and you want to make it or guarantee it to not fail in the first place. You want this constructor to always produce something valid. So no matter who is using it, it's like stupid proven, right? Nothing will go wrong because of this. The date will always be correct. So that's why this function is so crucial. It is, in many programmers' philosophy, the most important function of any class. All right. So yeah, that's going to be the constructor. We spent quite a lot of time to talk about it, but I think it's actually a very important part of the class creation. All right. So let's move on to the next video and talk about something else.